Greetings and welcome to this edition of the Global Healing Network. I'm your host, Dr. Kamal Kokai, and today I am joined from upstate New York, Justin Deichman, who is a licensed... Oh, there, you're waving to me.
I'm
I
just
didn't know if you were
waiting.
waving or saying stop.
No.
Yes, well, Justin is a licensed, nationally certified classical acupuncturist and a certified energy healer. And today we're going to find out about his unique style of healing. And you know what attracted me to his website, and he was referred to me by a colleague, I would say, is that when we start talking about healing and the different types of therapies and medicines, well, many of you know the four-pole model that I'm always speaking about, where there's a mechanical aspect, there's chemical, there's energetic, and there's consciousness. And the big divide is when you go from the biochemical realm to the bioenergetic and consciousness. And Justin has taken on both the bioenergetic part and the consciousness part in terms of his work. So we kind of want to find out how that actually works for him. And so, Justin, I'm going to ask you just to share a case that kind of demonstrates your work, and then we'll get into some of the details of that.
Okay, Kamal, sounds great.
All right.
So I was thinking about my patients, and one case in particular seemed to stand out as something that would work well to highlight how I work. And so it involves a woman who is in her mid to late 40s, I would say. And she initially came to me for the very biochemical need of helping to get off her benzodiazepine medication, which she had been on for 11 years at this point, mainly for anxiety, among other things. So she had gone into this process on her own once before and met with failure in the regard that she was unable to get off of the medication even after going through a period of being able to down the dosage and get to that point. So she was seeking outside help, and she came to me, and I had a lot of experience actually in a place I worked in, Providence, Rhode Island, an integrated medical center where we focused on helping people get off of medication. So it was really great to see somebody come in for that reason once again. Now, what's great about this case is it highlights how, and we're still in process, by the way, but she's very close to being completely off of her medication, and it's been a year, so we've taken our time, and I think that is a really safe way to do it. So in a case like this, you get faced with the concept that somebody's coming to you for very biochemical reasons, and that they need help with that piece. Oh, sorry, my camera's shaking a bit here as I bump the table. But what's curious, of course, is that there's a lot that underlies these chemical mechanisms that go on the mental emotional level and with her consciousness that are very important to this case. But I didn't get a chance to work into those until months into the treatment course because she was very reluctant to share the reasons that she initially went on to the benzodiazepine to begin with. So in our course of treatment, I mainly just started with a mixture of acupuncture and energy healing with sessions on a weekly basis. So in that practice, I insert my acupuncture needles based on whatever protocol I feel necessary for the day. And then I layer in energy healing once the needles are being retained. And I use a variety of modalities based on what feels good for the day, and that is basically the main part of my treatment for patients that I work with. Now, what I love about this case is that we got to a point where I got to bring in very strict energetic medicine protocols where she had reached a point, sort of a critical point, where she needed a real push on the consciousness, spiritual, mental, emotional level. And so from my training, I brought in a special protocol called the Reconnection, which is an aspect of reconnective healing developed by Dr. Eric Pearl, which is specifically used to push somebody forward on their life path, especially when they're at a moment of need, a turning point in their personal history. And so it's a great opportunity to see how this approach of layering in very specific, unique, one-time protocols into a mixture of biochemical and conscious acupuncture, energy acupuncture as I call it, has really led this woman to some great turnarounds in her life. She's been able to open up to me the fact that she had a miscarriage 11 years ago, which led to her initial use of this medicine and medication. And also the physical symptoms that she's been having are tied to that whole process. And we've seen everything diminish over time with this blend of physical and bioenergetic and consciousness medicine.
Okay. So I'm curious because for a listening audience, when you're using these neuroactive drugs that affect the neurotransmitters in your brain,
yes,
in part you're turning off different mechanisms, so that when you try to stop these medications, the body has a hard time really keeping up in terms of now doing what it needs to do. So in this particular case, because she had been on that medication for a while, she's really dependent on it. So
yes.
So there's the dependency itself, which is actually affecting the brain. And then behind that, there's the mind, meaning what kind of vibration was she tuned in to begin with that led her to feel the need. So at a certain point, were you actually able to get to the mind piece of the case in terms of helping her?
Yes, I have been, and it's actually only been recently. And there's been some real strong barriers that she's had in place towards that, or against that, I should say. But we've now gotten to the mind, and she has come to the place where she's been able to make some statements of intent and statements of acknowledgement as to what it is on the mental level that is really holding her back.
So let's just go back, because you started mentioning energetic protocols. And, a lot of times when people approach energy medicine or they describe their work, it's like basically they're just kind of focusing and channeling energy and that's that. But maybe you can share something about your training, outside of the classical acupuncture piece that helps you to be more adept in terms of what kind of energy.
Certainly. So, yes, energetic protocols, I was referring to the one training aspect that I did in energy healing, which is called the reconnection and reconnective healing. Other training in that field that I have includes my own personal training in medical qigong. So, unlike an attunement or some sort of frequency-based concept, medical qigong comes pretty much through physical training that you do that enables you to generate qi emission, so to speak, or energy fields. And then I've also trained with Dr. William Bengston, who is the founder of the Bengston Energy Healing Method. And so as far as protocols go in that regard, in this case specifically, there's something called the reconnection, which is the level 3 training, as far as I know, as they still call it, within Dr. Pearl's system. And unlike most energy healing, where you are either a conduit or are sort of intuitively working with a person based on your understanding of their condition or how they feel on that day, the reconnection itself is a 2-day process in which you are tracing very specific, very technical lines and patterns on the body, activating groups of points that are very similar in many ways to acupuncture points, as are these lines through the meridian system. In a protocol that is, as I said, very specific, is meant to be done 2 days back to back, and is meant to be done only one time in a person's life, and is developed to have a very transformational on a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical level result.
I would add in here that I've actually had opportunity to interview Dr. Pearl on 2 occasions, and I've been through that training, and I know he talks a lot about the concept of entrainment, where basically he is entraining you to the energetic vibrations that he is open up to, right? And
yes.
So now you mesh that with the actual Qigong training in terms of augmenting your body's ability to actually project that, and then you add that to Bengston's method, which is basically a totally consciousness.
Right, it's a mental technique.
It's a mental technique. That's pretty amazing in terms of that mix. So I want to kind of delve into that a little bit more because those are three very distinctive techniques that you're using. So
Okay.
how do you actually employ that?
It's a great point. I love the way that you put it. I haven't thought about it in precisely that manner, but it is almost like I'm engaging three different aspects of energy medicine into one package. And what's terrific about it is that when you reach a certain level with your medical qigong or your qigong training, it's you really understand how much it is about your breathing, your posture, the hours of work that you can put into your physical frame, allowing it to be a conduit for qi. And of course, understanding that there are certain points on your hands that connect to the energetic fields of the heart. So all of it is a very physically based practice. The reconnection, I would say, I would say is something that was a very odd experience for me when I went to do the training, and that I really sincerely felt that I was being infused with a type of frequency.
Right.
And whether it follows Dr. Pearl around or how all that began, to me that story is incredibly fascinating.
Right.
Because he came from a very genuine perspective of being completely ignorant to its genesis.
Right.
Anyway, so to me that's then a frequency that my body is entrained to hold in a way. And then we have Dr. Benston's piece, which is purely a mental technique, which also generates frequency. So whether it's blindly or not, I tend to think that I'm using them together with purpose. All of those people talk about maybe there's dangers in mixing things together, but as you are mentioning now, I see that they have almost three very distinct points of entry into that connection. And for me, they seem to work very well together, whether it's their hands on the body or off the body. But I think it's important to make the distinction for energy healing that there is different ways to generate or access energy or information, and that they can be tied together in a way that is synergistic. Yes.
So let's go back to your case, right?
Okay.
Woman comes in, she's dependent on Valium basically to function. So underneath is this whole anxiety, there's a whole overwhelming emotional piece that's right there that tries to peek out, that she's using the drug to shut the door on. So why don't you just talk about that from a TCM or traditional Chinese medical standpoint in terms of the pattern that you're actually treating and relative to the points, and then how you might then, after you've chosen that pattern, then couple that with an energetic therapy.
Okay. So from a perspective of classical acupuncture, the way that she was presenting most clearly was the idea that the heart and the kidney were not communicating. And so we have this aspect of the Shen, or the heart, and the fact that it was misaligned with, and then we can see that as the joy of living, with a person's willpower. And so she was having a lot of palpitations. She was having a difficult time escaping some traps of her will. She had been dealing with alcoholism and had recently gone to AA and been part of this program. So there was this whole mix of heart fire that was out of place and kidney water that was too low. And so
why don't you break down kidney water a little bit more so people get a picture of that?
So we talk about the resources of the body in different terms in Chinese medicine. The kidney water, or the yin element, we can see relating to hormones to a certain degree for sure. Definitely the kidneys in its connection to the endocrine system. And that's a very base, from my understanding of it, connection to Western anatomy and physiology. So it's not just the kidneys themselves on a biological nature, but more of a physiological range within the body.
And just to even amplify on that, what I so love about Chinese medicine is that they're really looking at the body in terms of more universal or elemental concepts. Meaning because the same elements and things that are in nature also reproduce themselves in our body. So they don't get fixated on any particular biochemical system, although a biochemical system works within the parameters of different energetic circuits within the body, different elemental aspects of the body. So to be able to perceive the person in that way actually allows you to address both the biochemical and the bioenergetic, or you can say the emotional or mental aspects of the imbalance, whatever it is they're suffering from. So I think that gives you a distinct advantage, as a primary care practitioner in terms of addressing this.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. One of the beautiful things about Chinese medicine is its nature to be an applied philosophy. And so we have this language and really worldview that we're given that allows us to see the interconnectedness between not only ourselves and nature, but the different physiological systems within the body, so that in practice we really are able to recognize that whole being and whole spirit from this base biological nature up to the mind level. And so, and beyond that, however you see things being connected. And so it's really intrinsic, I think, going forward in medicine for us to be able to recognize that connection within every individual. And so we do have an advantage in our practice of being able to see how something like heart palpitations or low back pain, which this woman also has, can be ultimately be connected to the fact that she had a miscarriage 11 years ago, had a great deal of grief that led to a huge amount of anxiety, which she then masked with Valium and alcohol because she couldn't handle it. And now we're unraveling all of that.
Right.
And it's it is a wonderful process that is as much sacred as it is biological. And Chinese medicine is wonderful and very necessary in this culture moving forward, because we need people who can understand that those things can't be separated.